Racing with a controller in F125 is awesome. However, I have a couple tips, tricks and settings to make it even better. Here we go. First off, let's head into the control settings within the game. In the generic settings, I recommend you to turn ERS overtake mode to toggle, so you only have to press once to engage and disengage the overtake mode. If you have a next-gen console, this is where you'd enable or disable adaptive triggers and rumble. The adaptive triggers can help massively with managing the gradual input to the throttle and brake, but of course this is only a feature for PlayStation 5 controllers. After this, click on the control scheme of your controller to see all of the button mappings. It's recommended to keep the standard button mapping. However, we are going to add a shortcut that will be very valuable for you in this game. First, unbind the look forward, right, left and back buttons and bind the look back button with something you're comfortable with to look back while racing. Then, scroll down to MFD shortcuts and assign right left to brake bias and up down to differential. By doing so, you'll be able to quickly increase and decrease the brake bias and ERS without having to open the MFD manually. This will be especially important in F125 as brake bias and ERS are settings you need to change during a race. In general, putting the brake bias up means you'll lock up less but you'll have a longer brake distance, and putting the brake bias down means you'll lock up more but you'll have a shorter brake distance. Try fiddling around with this around different tracks and you'll see what I mean. Now that we've got our buttons mapped, let's calibrate the controller to get the maximum performance out of it. F125 brings in improved traction plus improved precision drive technology that makes driving easier for controller users. However, if you find yourself struggling with traction, braking or steering too much, then the calibration option is important. Let's first test our controller to see if it works as it should and adapt some settings to make it work perfectly. Let's open the testing menu and flick the left stick to either side. If it doesn't go back to 0 automatically, up the steering dead zone by 1 until this does not happen anymore. I recommend to set the steering rate to be 120%. As controller inputs are very gradual, this allows you to be more direct with your steering input. Steering linearity results in the car not being so sensitive to the minimal movements on the sticks. So a higher linearity can help provide smoother steering and less rough movements. This means your initial input is going to be less sensitive as to when you are pressing the trigger more. I recommend you to put the steering linearity on 30. This is a nice sweet spot. Then, let's open the testing menu again and push the left stick completely to the left and afterwards completely to the right. If the steering input does not show -100 for the left and 100 for the right, up the steering saturation by 1 until it shows 100 on either side. If you're struggling with traction, it's possible to add throttle linearity, which results in making the initial pedal input less sensitive. The more you put throttle, the more sensitive it becomes. F125 is even easier on traction, so it might be best to skip this setting. If you do really need to put some throttle linearity, try out 20 and adjust it to your liking. Brake linearity is basically the same as throttle linearity, but then for the brakes. Upping this setting can help with brake lockups and tire wear, as your braking could potentially become a bit smoother. A starting suggestion for braking linearity would be 30, but once again, it is important to fiddle with it to adjust it to your personal preference. For those of you driving with no traction control or ABS assist, it's important to brake in a straight line and slowly release the brake trigger as you start turning. This will dramatically decrease the chances of locking up. Once exiting a corner, try to gradually apply more and more throttle as the car straightens out. Lower gears are going to be more sensitive to throttle input, so it could help to shift up a bit earlier than you would normally do. Next up, let's head to the vibration and force feedback. The normal amount for controllers is 100. However, if you feel the lack of vibration within the triggers, you could increase the vibration strength to 120. I recommend keeping the majority of the vibration settings default. However, a reduction in off-track effects prevents the controller vibrating and being off-putting when contact is made or when going off the track. It could be helpful to put down these settings a little bit. The most important setting to change is the wheel rotation. By default, it is set quite high. However, we are on a controller, so by putting it to 320 degrees, your steering input will be much more responsive. Taking tight turns like the Monaco hairpin will also become a little bit easier. After applying these settings and tricks, you'll be matching or even beating wheel users in no time. Check out my other F125 guides and make sure to like and subscribe if this video helped you in any way. Peace!